So today's class is on hand injuries. So let's have a look first. Why is it important to learn about the anatomy of hand and the injuries? Then we'll know what is the basic anatomy. Then we'll come to the clinical examination, and finally we'll discuss some common injuries of the hand. So the first topic, why is it so important? So hand injuries are very common, and around 64.8% are the finger injuries. So the hand is a very important structure to humans. It is useful for communication, for sensations, for employment, as we do most of our work through our hands, and also for independent living. It is important for communications, for greetings, handshakes, waving, and all. For certain gestures. So we communicate through our hand gestures, like sign language and certain gestures we've seen before. For sensations, a large area of brain structure have been devoted to touch sensation. It is highly sensitive. Relationships and use for most fundamental vocations. For employment, it is very important. So without the use of our hands, we would the most people would find independent living almost impossible. So any hand injuries like this, which may take 6 to 8 weeks off work and no income, it is very difficult to cope in developing countries such as India. Now the basic anatomy of hand, there are certain tendons, ligaments. There are certain wrist extensors, the extensor carpi radialis longus, brevis, and the carpi ulnaris. There are long extensors, which are extensor digitorum caminis, the indicis proprius, digiti minimi, and the central strip of the long extensors, the intrinsic muscles of the hand, the flexor digitorum profundus, the digitorum superficialis, interossei, and the lumbrical muscles, and the flexor pollicis longus, brevis, and abductor pollicis longus, and the wrist flexors, which are the flexor carpi radialis, palmaris longus, and flexor carpi ulnaris. The three major nerves, the ulnar, median, and the radial. This is a cross section of a finger. We can see the extensor expansion, the bone, the digital arteries, the digital nerves, flexor digitorum profundus tendon, and the superficialis tendons. It is a very small area and a lots to injure. Even a small laceration may cause the functional issues. So first of all, we inspect or look the injured hand, any swelling, any wound, any discoloration. We also have to assess the posture of the fingers, any abnormality in the normal posture of the patient. We feel then if the temperature is raised, if the extremity is cold, are the sensations intact or not. So frequently presenting hand injuries may include fractures, lacerations or penetrating injuries, amputations, degloving injuries, human or punch bites, animal bites, and hand infections. Lacerations are very common. Typical culprits being these machines. These are also typical case of any machine injury, any big machine. Mostly the laborers or daily wage workers will come to you in the emergency department complaining of any traumatic injury. We were telling about some common lacerations or hand injuries. So regardless of the size, the lacerations always have a high suspicion of any serious injury. The glass only ever stops cutting when it hits the bone. It cuts or penetrates through all the soft tissues. Lacerated tendons, when repaired, take 6 to 8 weeks of healing, and also hand therapy or physiotherapy to recover. Nerve repairs often take 3 to 6 months at least to get some benefit from the repair. Now the extensor tendon injury. The hand is divided into zones according to the anatomical location of the injury. In the hand and the wrist, there are 7 zones, 7 extensor zones. Zone 1 is at the DIP joint. Zone 2 is at the middle phalanx. Zone 3 is at the proximal interphalangeal joint. Zone 4 is the proximal phalanx. Zone 5 is the metacarpophalangeal joint. Zone 6 is the metacarpals. Zone 7 the carpals, and the zone 8 is the proximal wrist. So common deformities. In zone 1 injury, we can see mallet deformity. What is mallet deformity? Uh, in if if the finger has any trauma due to any high impact object such as a ball, so what happens is the extensor tendons they give away or break off. So the distal interphalangeal joint is in flexion and the proximal is in hyperextension. The Botnais deformity is the opposite of the mallet deformity, in which there is flexion at the distal interphalangeal joint and extension at uh, um, the middle proximal interphalangeal joint. In the zone 5, we can see the fixed flexion of the MCP joint, and in the zone 7, we also see the fixed flexion of the MCP joint. So what will be the management? In mallet deformity or zone 1 deformity, which is the distal interphalangeal joint, we can manage it either by closed splinting for 6 to 8 weeks or open suture repair for fixation and the soft tissue reconstruction. In zone 3 injury or the Botnais deformity, we also can do closed splinting in hyperextension for 6 weeks or open suture repair, in which we take a figure of 8 suture. In the zone 5 deformity, we do closed splinting at 45 degrees extension at the wrist and 20-degree flexion at the metacarpophalangeal joint or open suture repair. And in zone 7 injury, suture repair only, no closed repair, followed by post-op splinting. Now this is a picture of mallet finger. We can see, which is also called baseball finger, as described as if baseball impacts on the tip of the finger, the extensor tendons give away, causing flexion at the DIP joint and the hyperextension at the proximal interphalangeal joints. This is the Botnais deformity. It is the opposite, in which the proximal interphalangeal joint is at the flexion and the distal is in the hyperflexion. Now the difference between both of them is the zone injured. Zone 1 was injured in the mallet, which caused the typical deformity, and in Botnais, zone 3 is injured. That is the proximal interphalangeal joint. And sometimes there is a volar plate rupture. Now the flexor tendon injuries. In flexor compartment, it is divided into 5 zones instead of 7. The zone 1 is where only one tendon, FDP, is inserted from the middle of the middle phalanx to distally. And in zone 2, we can see 2 tendons. One is the same FDP and also 2 FDS tendons from the MCP joints to the middle of the middle phalanx again. In zone 3, we have the central palm. In zone 4, we have tendons in the carpal tunnel. And in zone 5, we have tendons proximal to the carpal tunnel. So zone 1 injury will present as the loss of active flexion at the DIP joint or hyperextension of the DIP, which is called jersey finger. In this, again, the flexor tendons are injured. So management will be primary or secondary tendon repair and careful suturing to prevent post-op adhesions. In zone 2 injury, there will be loss of active flexion at the MCP joint. So management will be skin closure, then secondary repair by tendon grafting. The primary repair performed by a skilled hand surgeon to minimize any post-op adhesions. In zone 3, 4 or the thumb, there will be primary or secondary tendon repair. And we have to also examine for any thenar muscle injury and the recurrent branches of the median nerve. So amputations, these can occur at any level, and the ability to replant or revascularize depends on both the level of the amputation and the mechanism of injury. Once the amputation is past the distal third of the distal phalanx, the vessels are too small to be anastomosed. Now this is a case of fingertip amputation, again common with patients presenting with any machine injury. The injured components may include the skin, bone, nail bed, tendon, pulp, and the padded area of the fingertip. If the skin is removed, the defect is less than a centimeter in diameter. It is often possible to treat these injuries with simple dressing changes. If there is a little bit of bone exposed at the tip, it can sometimes be trimmed back slightly and treated with a VY plasty. And this is a picture in which we have done a VY plasty. Another example of amputation. So the decision is based on the importance of the part, the level of the injury, the mechanism of injury, and the expected return of the function. The recommended ischemia times for replantation are: for major replant, 6 hours of warm and 12 hours of cold ischemia. In digits, 12 hours of warm ischemia and 24 hours for cold ischemia. Preoperative preparation, radiography of both amputated and the stump parts are done to determine the level of injury and the suitability for replantation. So overall success rates for replantation approach are 80%, and better outcome are done with guillotine amputation, which is a sharp amputation from a sharp object, which are a 77%. And if the part is severely crushed and mangles, it comes down to 49%. And in general, the prognosis for ring avulsion is extremely poor. Studies have demonstrated that the patients can expect to achieve 50% of the function and 50% sensations of the replanted part. This is an example of a degloving injury. So the follow-up, it can get a large areas of skin loss, typically treated as skin graft with original skin, or debrided and skin graft from the thigh also. And it can get we can also see post-op contraction of the scars. Punch bite injuries. These are very common. The injuries occur after punching someone in the mouth. Usually, small laceration to the second or third metacarpophalangeal joint is seen, and it often extends into the joint with damage to the extensor tendon. So it happens from the teeth of the victim or the person who is getting punched. It always requires a proper washout and dressings. The common consequences may include septic arthritis or extensor tendon loss. Basically, it can injure a tendon or it may get infected. This is an example of the punch bite. These are the teeth marks present from the victim's teeth. The follow-up usually requires a level 1 washout or a thorough washout, and sometimes multiple washouts may be required. The tendon cannot be repaired if already infected. Tendon, although initially intact, can be completely destroyed by the infection. We can also see cases of animal bites, dog bites, and cat bites. These both of them frequently get infected. The cat teeth puncture like a needle and deposit the bacteria at the base, which forms an abscess. The dog bites are relatively easier to treat, as the dog teeth typically do not puncture but tear, leaving the wound open and able to be irrigated. But cosmetically, it is a major deformity, as there is degloving of the tissue. Some common fractures and dislocations. Scaphoid fracture is very common. We can see swelling, and patient will complain about swelling, pain, and we'll check for tenderness. And the tenderness would be in the anatomical snuff box. This is a typical X-ray showing the fracture line in the scaphoid. Treated with cast application for 3 to 4 months in dorsiflexion and radial deviation. It is known as glass holding position. And surgical treatment by open reduction and internal fixation with the help of a Herbert screw. The complications may include avascular necrosis of the bone, delayed union or non-union, or wrist osteoarthritis. Another common is the dislocation of the lunate. It requires open most of the time. It requires open reduction, and it may undergo avascular necrosis also. Now, Bennett's fracture. So there was a professor of surgery, Sir Edward Bennett. who wrote a paper describing a typical fracture of the base of the first metacarpal. In the paper, he wrote that a patient with this typical fracture, which is an intra-articular fracture of the base of first metacarpal, if not treated or reduced properly, would have difficulty in performing normal routine daily tasks. Like a person having this fracture, which is not treated, may be able to wear his shirt, but he may not be able to tie the button his shirt, basically. The person may be able to wear the shoe, but will not be able to tie the laces. So this is a typical fracture in which happens because of longitudinal force applied to the thumb. So the forces acting are the adductor pollicis muscle, the palmar oblique ligament, and the abductor pollicis longus muscle. Treated with close reduction and K-wire fixation. Now, there was a straight line in the Bennett's fracture. If it is a Y or T-shaped pattern of the first metacarpal base, it is known as Rolando fracture. It differs from Bennett that there is usually no diaphyseal displacement of the bone. So this is a Rolando fracture, which can be treated by close reduction and fixation with K wires. We can see the typical Y-shaped pattern. Now, these are the carpometacarpal dislocations at the fourth or fifth metacarpal, which can be reduced and fixed with K wires. Now, the fracture of phalanges. It can happen because of fall of any heavy object or any crush injury. It may be undisplaced or displaced and may be treated by strapping. But nowadays, a splint is available which is known as finger caught splint, which can be applied to a single finger. These may require open reduction. This is an X-ray showing the proximal interphalangeal joint dislocation and the disruption of the volar plate. The dislocation of the proximal interphalangeal joint, the mechanism is hyperextension at the PIV joint. With it may happen with or without the the fracture may happen with or without dislocation, and often the initial injury seems trivial. We can see there is a small avulsion fracture in the picture on the right. If the dislocation happens with or without fracture, or if the fracture fragment, if the dislocation happens without fracture, or the fracture fragment is less than 30% of the joint surface, we try to reduce and manage conservatively in dorsal blocking splints. This is a dorsal blocking splint in which the proximal interphalangeal joint is kept in a 30 degrees flexion and the volar structures are off stretched, and we slowly increase out to the neutral position. We can commonly see the fracture of the fifth metacarpal, which is also known as the boxer's fracture, which happens when somebody punches the other person. So in this we have to assess the range of motion and the rotation of the digit and manage conservatively or through the fixation with K-wire. The spiral fracture of the fourth metacarpal is also common, and it has a tendency to rotate, and impacted fractures can result in the extension lag and hence the poor function. Paronychia. It is an infection of the finger that involves the tissue at the edge of the fingernail. It is superficial and localized to the soft tissue and the skin, and the most common bacterial infections seen in the hand are Staphylococcus and Streptococcus. All over any case in orthopedics, the most common organism will be Staphylococcus aureus. In case of osteomyelitis, whenever asked, Staphylococcus aureus is the most common organism. Any age group, any type of osteomyelitis. So treatment of paronychia, wound care alone is sufficient, and sometimes we can do the collection of the pus or drainage. A simple incision is made for the collection of pus and allow the drainage of the excess pus. A scalpel may be inserted along the edge of the nail to allow the drainage. If the infection is very large, a part of the nail might have to be removed. Oral antibiotics can be given and wound care can be done at home. What is a phelon? The infection of the fingertip is known as a phelon. This is located in the fingertip pad and the soft tissue which are associated with it. We can see there is an abscess in between the fibrous septa. What is the treatment of the felon? Incision and drainage. A volar longitudinal incision is given starting 3 to 5 millimeter distal to the interphalangeal joint. The incision will be made on one or both sides of the fingertip, and it breaks up the compartment, and the gauze will be placed into the wound to aid the initial drainage. And we flush out with the sterile solution. And finally, antibiotics. Infectious flexure, tenosynovitis, and deep space infection. This infection involves the tendon sheaths and the deep spaces, and the penetrating trauma that introduces bacteria. It is a surgical emergency and will require rapid treatment with IV antibiotics. And there are certain cardinal signs, which are Canadell's cardinal signs, which include intense pain along the course of the tendon with the extension. This is the earliest and the most important sign. Other signs are the flexion posture, uniform swelling, and percussion tenderness along the course of the sheath of the tendon. Now, question time.